Hi Pisces, welcome to your 2019 astrological overview. It's Raina, and my intention for this reading is for you to get an idea of some of the longer range transits that are going to be impacting you in 2019. And some of this is already in play for you. For instance, Pluto being in Capricorn for 10 years, almost 11 years, is in your 11th house. And I'll get to what that means in a minute, but there you go. That's a long time. I also want to state this is for Pisces Sun and Pisces Rising, and it's also a general forecast. Depending on when you're born, you have a certain degree of Sun or Rising, and that determines your natal or solar placements. And so that's going to affect timing issues, but at least you might get some idea of what is happening. If you'd like a private reading, I have sale on my natal chart interpretations, and that information is below. The link is below for that. But as long as you understand that, I think you'll still be able to get something from this. So one of the big influences for you, and has been for you for a while, is what is happening in your 11th house. The 11th house is a house of hopes and wishes, but I think even more than that, this is the house of the collective. So this can include your friendships, and this can include any groups that you belong to, but this can also be your sense of self within a larger group. So Pisces is a sign that is a mutable water sign. And I always think of Pisces people as people who enjoy the company of others, who may prefer to be around other people rather than being alone. And it's just my own personal observations and feelings. I'm sure that it's going to vary from person to person. But for instance, as water signs, I think of Scorpios as more lone wolves who don't necessarily crave the camaraderie of other people the way that I feel Pisces individuals do. And yet, as a mutable water sign, Pisces tend to be very chameleon-like, and they can move in different circles and conform to the vibe, or I don't know what you'd call it, the flavor, the way that the others tend to be. So I could see you guys as Pisces having different types of friendships with different types of people and being able to equally function in those different environments. But something may be happening and may have started happening where it has been called to your attention in some way that you have to really connect with what it is that you're looking for in this area of your life. So Pluto is always about stripping bare things, like stripping bare the illusions, or getting to the heart of the matter, if you will. And in the 11th house, part of this can be how other people affect you, perhaps. Maybe there have been in the past situations where you have been influenced in a negative way by those around you who claim to be your friends. And you have to find out the hard way that this is not an ideal situation. Pluto in the 11th house can make you obsessed about certain goals that you have that are long-term goals that may have nothing to do with your career choice. They may have to do with where you want to live or what kinds of things that you want to do that you're not doing now. And that can affect you in the sense that you may have some of these things having to look at them at a deeper level, like, why do you want this? And it's possible that you will be fulfilled, or these things will come to you in this time frame, and they will transform you, because that's the ultimate goal of Pluto, is to transform you in this area. And this could also include the types of groups that you belong to. You know, the 11th house is a house of social justice and, you know, humanitarian efforts. So I could see some Pisces people, you know, changing their life by working in a field that helps other people transform their lives. And it could be through a certain group that you're belonging to that is assisting others. And maybe it has to do with some way that these people are bettering themselves. It's really interesting that your sign, Pisces, rules the 12th house, the house adjacent to this house that I'm speaking of, and deals with prisons and hospitals and suffering sometimes, you know, places where people have to atone for their sins, or, you know, have to deal with their, you could say deal with the aftermath of what they've done, or just things along those lines. And that means that you have that connection to rehabilitation. And with the 11th house, you might be working in some kind of fashion, and it could be even volunteer work, who knows, but that this helps people, groups of people who are underserved or who need that kind of rehabilitation in some way. Even though this house doesn't deal with that directly, it is dealing with populations. And you are the type of person in general who wants to help others, who wants to heal others. So Pluto is also a healing force. So that might be what is happening as well. It's so interesting because the 11th house is not one of the houses that to me is easy to really go into depth about. And you have so much going on here that it makes me wonder how this is manifesting for you. Because in addition to Pluto, you also have Capricorn here. I mean, Saturn. And I was just looking at the word Capricorn in my notes. And Saturn in the 11th house can be feeling some sort of duty or seriousness with groups of people. So instead of like looking at socializing, which we would associate with the 11th house, in terms of coming into contact with multiple people, there is a serious intention behind it. So this could even connect to work matters. If you're in some kind of profession where networking and getting in contact with as many people as possible is part of your job description, or it benefits you, you may be looking at your social contacts in a much more serious way rather than just in a social sense. And this can also kind of go along with what I was talking about before, that you feel this sense of duty towards a particular group or groups, that you're taking it seriously. Maybe it's a group that deals with issues surrounding a cause, like I was going to say saving the whales, or, you know, an environmental cause. And you feel like a sense of responsibility to this organization or organizations. And basically, you might be saying, oh, what's the big deal about that? But it's something that is really shaping your life because there are multiple placements or transits in here and for long periods of time. This can also be a time, not only with Saturn, but also with Pluto, where you really purge your social circle. And it may come in different waves and different forms. So for instance, let's say a Pisces person feels that they have been running with the wrong crowd. And an example would be you decide to quit drinking. And you know that there are people that, most of the people that you hang out with are heavy drinkers. I think in AA, that's like one of the big things is that they tell people that they have to, people, places, and things or something like that, that they have to kind of change their life in every area. They can't just expect to remain sober and continue to live life as they lived before. And so there may be something along those lines where you just don't feel like the people that you're around are really getting you where you need to go. And Saturn, in and of itself, can put the kibosh on a lot of socializing. So Saturn can have a restrictive type of an effect where maybe something is prevented from you, something prevents you from being able to socialize like you normally do. Now, that doesn't mean that you are not socializing, but you may be more in a serious mindset about it. And perhaps even these are older people coming into your life because Saturn is more about old age. So let's say you're in your 20s and you typically have been hanging around people your age, and you may feel a sense of dissatisfaction because you think they're too immature or you don't like what they're up to. And somehow you come in contact with older people and you really resonate with them more. And so you start hanging out with them more. And you may meet a group of people or individuals, I'm going back to the Pluto influence, that really impact you in a profound way. And they totally transform your life. Same with Saturn. But Saturn is more, kind of the grounded aspect of it, where you cultivate friendships that serve practical purposes. Maybe you are, having friendships with people in your field, in your profession, or perhaps they are people, even they could be even coworkers or something like that, or they just are people who are interested in the same things that you're interested in, but it's something practical that is going to advance you in some way. And the last transit here, this will be for the next 18 months, is the South Node in this house. And the South Node is your karmic past. So in a way, you could call this kind of a test because it may be that something tempts you with the familiarity of a certain type of friendship. An example would be when I was talking about a drinking buddy, for instance. And you know that you're trying to get away from that lifestyle, and yet these people keep coming up. Maybe they're even your past friends, and tempting you to party with them. And you know that you're done with that lifestyle, and you want to better yourself. And Saturn wants you disciplined, but you need disciplined friends. So the universe may help you with that. And in the meantime, kind of pare down those more wild people, wilder influences, so that you can be with somebody who is more productive and constructive an influence for you. And so with the South Node, it's not that it's bad karma to be around certain people, but it's just that it's served its purpose and now it's time to move on. And the North Node points you in the direction you need to move on. So this will be in the opposite sign in the opposite house. In the first week of November of this year, I'm recording this on the last day of November of 2018, we had the North Node going into Cancer, a fellow water sign. And this is in your 5th house of love and creativity and children. So this is more of a personal kind of a house and speaking with you personally. And the 11th house is more impersonal and more about the collective rather than the individual. So the direction that you're supposed to be going in is looking for that person for whom you can express who you are as an individual. And when you think about it, when we are in a group setting, we don't have the ability to really shine the way that we do when we are in a couple. When we are with our beloved, by ourselves, and we have fallen in love with somebody. When you're in a group, you can, obviously you have your own personality, but you are thinking of others and you're not trying to hog the spotlight. And so you're the type of person who enjoys that kind of camaraderie. But the North Node is asking you to cultivate this type of love relationship. If you're not in one already, obviously. I'm not asking you to cheat on your partner. The other thing, too, about the 5th house is it's the house of creativity. So a lot of Pisces people are artistic, whether they practice it or not. And in the 5th house, this can be a time when there is some serendipitous or delightfully destined experiences for you in the area of creative self-expression or in the area of romance too. And this may come about in many different ways, maybe even in an unexpected way. But the point being that if you're artistic and you've been neglecting your talents, this is definitely the time to get back into that. Don't let it pass you by, because you will probably be given some sort of opening by the universe that helps nudge you along in this direction. And the same with love relationships. Perhaps you have felt that love has eluded you, but this may be the time for that to blossom. But again, you have to be open to it, Pisces. Even though the eclipses will fall on this axis of Cancer and Capricorn, of 5th and 11th houses for you, it doesn't mean that it's automatically going to just drop in your lap. I mean, it may be much easier for it to come into your reality, but by the same token, there can be this, I don't think there can be the guarantee that this will happen if you are resistant to it, if you haven't healed from something, and if you're hung up on somebody else. All of that has to be taken care of in order for you to be open to this new experience. And the 5th house can also be conceiving children. And so if you're someone, I could sometimes when I see full moons or lunar eclipses in the 5th house, I think, whoa, you could be very fertile. But I would say the same even with a solar eclipse. So if you do not want to get pregnant watch out. You know, we've already had a solar eclipse in July, and we're having another one this July. I'll give you the exact information on that in a minute, but just in general, just be aware of that. So the year begins with a solar eclipse on January 5th at 15 degrees of Capricorn in the 11th house of hopes and wishes. This is such a wonderful start to 2019. It starts off with a bang because we have all of the personal planets direct, and then on the next day, Uranus goes direct in Aries, 28 degrees of Aries, and for you, that's your second house of earned income, and then all the planets are direct for 2 months. But that solar eclipse is in that place where I was telling you about the South Node and Pluto and Saturn. And so those challenging planets and the South Node, and here we have this kind of a green light from the universe to pursue matters in this area. So I want to just reiterate, it's not that you're not supposed to have any friendships as long as the South Node is in that 11th house. It's about being too interested in replicating the type of relationships that you've had in the past, the friendships, I should say. Because, if it's like a group situation, you may have belonged to groups of people that perhaps you've outgrown whatever that area is that would interest you. And maybe at one time you felt a strong affinity with that group. And maybe you need to form new kind of groups and associate with new sets of people. And so that may be an opportunity for this to happen. It could also be a dream of yours that is planting a million seeds, or that something is coming very easily to you related to your hopes and wishes. As I said, Uranus goes direct the next day in the second house of earned income. This has been a 7-year saga for Pisces. Uranus in the area of your finances may be making them less predictable, making it harder if you've been to track your earnings, because maybe they've been here, there, and everywhere. And it could be that you're working jobs that don't have steady paychecks, or cobbling together the income that you need through 3 jobs or something like that, and they have like their own paydays, and it's just kind of like all over the map. Well, this is going to continue for a couple of months, and then Uranus is going to move on and go into your 3rd house. And I think it will be more comfortable in that house because of what it represents and what the 3rd house represents. In the 2nd house, Uranus can feel very unstable. And it's interesting because Taurus rules the 2nd house. And Uranus has recently gone into Taurus. It's just retrograded back into Aries for the time being, but it will go back into Taurus on March 6th. As on the macro level, Uranus in Taurus is going to affect our monetary system. There may be wild swings in our economy, or economies of the world, I should say. And it can also, I think though, it could be very good because it can breathe some fresh life into Taurus, which is a fixed earth sign that tends to be very conservative and very rigid. And Uranus is definitely a change agent, and it's very progressive. It's very forward moving and forward looking, and innovative. And that's a key word, because innovation means thinking outside the box. So when it comes to practical matters, that's wonderful. And when it goes into your third house on March 6th, it could be that you're using technology to communicate more. So if that's connected to your work, then so be it. Maybe you have a business and you decide to start advertising by using YouTube or using Instagram. And that can really help you because that is kind of where we're at right now. You see, if you watch a video, that some of very big companies invest on the internet. I mean, that's where it's at right now. So let's talk about Jupiter. Jupiter is in Sagittarius, and it will be until December 2nd of 2019. So as I record this, almost exactly a little bit over a year from now. And I'm not going to get too much into Jupiter and Capricorn in that 11th house, but there's that other, joining all that party in the 11th house. Jupiter, I'll just say that Jupiter in the 11th house can increase your friendships, social contacts. But it has to contend with Saturn and the rest of that. Rest of the gang up there. But Jupiter in the 10th house is wonderful for career advancement because of the part of Jupiter that's expansive. So what this can mean is somebody who is going to maybe get a promotion at some point in 2019. Maybe you really make a name for yourself in 2019. The 10th house is at the top of the chart and it's your reputation in the world. Maybe you expand your reputation or your name, or you're able to promote yourself career-wise more. There will be a retrograde in this 10th house from April 10th until August 11th. So that could be a slowdown of some sort, or even revisited opportunities career-wise that may come to you, but you may get a lucky break in your career in general during the next year. So let's talk about, I want to go back a little bit to, I mentioned a solar eclipse on January 5th. There's going to be a lunar eclipse on January 21st at 0 degrees of Leo, and that will be in your 6th house of work, okay? So you have like some things going on here that indicate maybe change of jobs. This could be the time for that because this is the workplace, and this is a lunar eclipse and may just be eclipsed out. So whether it's getting laid off or the whole, business that you work for, maybe it goes out of business. Lunar eclipses can just take something out of your life. But the thing that's interesting about it is that you have Jupiter in that 10th house. So it may be the case that you end something or something is ended for you, but you have something that is much greater that is happening for you. Perhaps it's even on your end of things. Usually Uranus means that the universe is doing this and it's not really in your control. But I don't necessarily believe that it always has to be that way. So it's possible that you decide to leave a job because you're having so much success with the thing that you really want to do. Maybe you had some job that was kind of just a temporary thing to pay the bills because you were waiting to get that job, that career going. That's really your dream, and then it happens. And in the summer, we're going to have a solar eclipse in Cancer, 10 degrees of Cancer, on the 2nd of July, that 5th house. This can be new beginnings with a love relationship, somebody coming in that maybe you had no idea that was going to just come, suddenly into your life. And this can also be some kind of creative endeavor that really comes in a very strong way, a strong new beginning in this area. And yeah, very interesting. The 5th house is also the house of recreation, hobbies, fun. And so you may just have, I think that, with the 11th house being tested, but also having a solar eclipse there at the beginning of the year, you may be enjoying popularity and enjoying being invited to parties and things like that. And they may come in a big wave with that solar eclipse. And a couple weeks later, there's a lunar eclipse in that 11th house again. More shakeups, more change, more revelations. Maybe more of the dreams that you've been working towards or visualizing coming to pass. This could be a really great year for you to experience some of the long-term goals or realize them finally. So I think I'm going to leave it there, Pisces. One thing I should have said, I didn't write this down, but Neptune is still in your sign. And so, Pisces, you don't need Neptune to be dreamy. You've got that already. But Neptune in your sign means that you are very idealistic and creative right now. Until 2025, so quite a ways to go. Okay, well, I hope that you enjoyed this. Take care. Good luck. Bye.